welcome to the show, everybody. This is your boy, Lil Jackson, coming to you live from Charleston, Illinois, where it's always cold in the winter, but the spring and summer is where it's really at. Everything comes to life, renewal. It's getting there, you know what I'm saying? That goofy groundhog back in the beginning of February said he's seen a shadow. So, 6 more weeks of winter. Old Punxsutawney Phil. But today I'm talking to you guys about an author named James Clear. James wrote a book called Atomic Habits that actually is on Amazon's #1 read this week. And they have 68,155 reviews on Amazon about James Clear's Atomic Habits. Walmart is selling this book for $11.98 for a hardcover. Audible, it's $28 because obviously you're paying for the reader. But for Audible, they had 85,131 reviews. And it was a mixture of reviews, which was awesome. So I really do want to kind of share with you guys some of these reviews from Audible, just so you know that I'm not being biased and it's not just me, So here, I'll read this one from a guy named Dave Westman. He wrote it on 10/30 of 2018. The title is Insightful, Practical, Fresh, and potentially transformative, which is so true, man. I love this book. And that's my own thoughts about it. I do love it. It is very interesting. It's very needful to the world, to everyone around us. Honestly, it's just brilliant because we're all so stuck in these electronical realms, like technology's got a hold of us bad. But anyways, David's review says, I am only about halfway through this book. Just bought it yesterday, but I couldn't help put it at least a partial review, he says. Well, thank you, David. I absolutely love reading this book. James Clear has a phenomenal understanding of human behavior and specifically how our habits define our identities. For me personally, he has offered a completely new way for me to understand why I continue my bad habits when inside of my head. I know they are bad, and why I find it so difficult to start good habits. Furthermore, he offers very specific strategies how to change those habits so I can make myself into the person I know I should be. And that is very true, and thank you, David. There's more to David's review if you guys want to go on Audible and read what David had to say. I also want to share Kevin R. He wrote a review on 2/4 of 2019. It says, good. He gave it a 3-star review, guys. And David's was a 5-star review. So Kevin's the 3-star here says, good, actionable content. This was a decent follow-up to Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, but not as engaging to me. What Clear lacks, by comparison, is the narrative space. That's one of the 3-star reviews, but I'm not gonna read it all to you. I'm just reading you kind of so you guys get it. It's not a biased opinion of mine that I love this book. So here's a 2-star review. It says author went overboard. And this is from C. Hughes on 6/25/2019, a 2-star review. Author went overboard, hawking his site, which I've read this new revised version, and I didn't see too much about his site in there. So he must have kind of gotten rid of it. Maybe there was several bad reviews out there, because I have read that. This ain't the only guy that said that, and not just on Audible. So I also read reviews on Target.com as well. And here's a couple 5-star reviews from Target. It says, good read 2 months ago. This book is so good, once you start reading it, you'll want to finish it. Most motivational books aren't life-changing, but this book is different. Another one said, Aaron, 2 months ago, on Target.com, said, great book. I love this book. There were easy but life-changing habits I could start implementing right away. Really easy to read and simple concepts to understand. I agree. And there's been over 3 million copies sold. It's like, you guys, it's tiny steps, big results. And If you're looking, even if you're not looking, I've read reviews where people were saying that they weren't even looking to change anything. They just happened to pick this book up. Or I read one where it's like, oh yeah, I went into a Goodwill and somebody had donated this book and I picked it up. And he's talking about he's making six figures now. I'm like, what? Kind of crazy, but kind of cool. Obviously, this book's $28 on Audible. There's a PDF version on AliExpress.com that's $2.24. How could you beat that? eBay's offering a hardback cover of this book for $12.99, and Target is offering it for $11.98 for a hardcover. And remember, it's Amazon's #1 read this week, so there's a reason why it's the #1 read. Because look at this. Here, 9 days ago, Gabriella posted a 5-star review stating, "This book has helped me change my habits tremendously." I love it. It's true. I read it, and it's all I'm thinking about now, you guys. And when I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. This guy has a way of cultivating your mind, even if you don't know anything about habits, because I literally just started getting into the power of habits within the last 4 to 5 months. And wow, I've read so many great behavioral books since then that I find this one truly, the author, James Clear, I find him really to the point, but he gets your mind drawn in by his stories. I mean, he tells a story in the book too, guys, about Vietnam and about our troops and how they suffered with an addiction, and how, you know, a lot of it had to do with their environment. And it just, even reading that story in this book, it made me think about America and the opioid epidemic, and how all of a sudden, you know, now there's marijuana going legal in every state because they're trying to curb the opioid epidemic. It's a hell of a lot easier to quit pot than it is to quit heroin or fentanyl. In which, I don't know, he said that he had done research, and it was once thought before the Vietnam, because Vietnam was where they started, you know, pretty much statisticians for the military started keeping records of our troops over there and how they were being affected. And I mean, you might not think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal. Look at America now. I know I have so many friends that have died from fentanyl. I was one of the last towns coming out of Chicago on the heroin highway. So I know it's deadly, but he writes, James Clear writes in his book that, you know, it is not, heroin is, it ain't, they thought it was, you would never get over it. You would never be able to beat the addiction, that it was like engraved in your brain once you used it, kind of. And that's not the case at all. I think James Clear has done a great version this time, because I did see in other places of where, like, it was kind of like he was selling in the early years the first part of his book, and then, like, because I mean, look at Kevin Hart. Think about this. Kevin Hart, it took him 15 years to put together all his jokes. And, you know, every time a joke didn't work and nobody laughed, he'd scratch it off. But he would keep the ones that made people laugh. So obviously, I mean, James Clear is an author. He is a speaker. And he is considered an expert on practical behavior, you guys. And so, I mean, James Clear's worth, his net worth in 2015 was reportedly to be $72.7 billion. Obviously, some kind of brainiac of some sort. So, I mean, he graduated in 2008 from Denison University and was married to his wife, Christy, in May of 2015. He was born in Ohio. He talks in the book, he's like, you can break a habit, but highly unlikely that you will ever forget it. Think about that, you guys. You can break a habit, but highly unlikely you will ever forget it. And that's why people go back to smoking so quickly when stressful things go on. Or they quit for a long time, you know, and then all of a sudden they walk into a bar, sit down next to an old friend, and then boom, the craving for that cigarette hits them again. And they haven't had that craving in 20 years. That's the way it works. You can break a habit, but it's highly, you will never forget it. So you got to kind of like do therapy to yourself, you know, aftercare. Once you break the habit, Remind yourself, hey, I don't want to get sucked back in. Tiny steps, big results. No one can stick to positive habits in a negative environment. And that's why he talked about, James Clear talked about, our soldiers and the things they've suffered, and all the statisticians that kept track to know that, hey, once they got back to the United States, they quit all that crap, pretty much, and it was possible to stop. It wasn't like Vietnam dragged it on to the kids of, my generation from the 90s, up into the 2000s. That's not true. That crap was from drug cartels and, obviously, the black market, So also in this book, James Clear, and you can read about this stuff on the internet. This stuff is no secret. That's why everybody said, oh, you should read this other guy's book, Doug Hill or whatever the hell his name was. Okay, yeah, you can go read his book too, but I'm telling you right now, this guy that wrote this book, James Clear, $72.7 billion. Come on, it's 2021 now. And this book is on the New York bestsellers list. It's on Amazon's #1 read this week. Come on. This is what you want to be reading. Even if you don't want to change your habits, there's stuff in here that it'll make you realize stuff that you don't even realize you're addicted to. Or relationship things that you do that, because he talks about cue, craving, respond, and reward in this. And that's nothing new. I learned about that in high school back in 1999. An intro to psychology, I believe. But anyways, self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. Just because you're not going to get that fixed because you're at work and you're responsible because you love your family doesn't mean that you're ever going to forget that habit, or that self-control's going to keep you from going out there and doing whatever it is you're going to do, whatever kind of bad habit it may be, and it may not be drugs, it may be, fast food or that stupid coffee every single morning that you have no idea Starbucks have so many people addicted because our genetic makeup loves sugar, and we need sugars, salts, and oils to make us vibrant and alive and be able to breathe and our organs to work appropriately. You take any one of those things away, sugar, salts, or oils, from a human, a mouse, anything, you will see detrimental effects on their health and behaviors. People are acting out sometimes and, oh, he's bipolar or whatever they say, In reality, he could be malnourished and because his body don't have this certain chemical, he's acting that way. And this book right here will teach him how to annihilate the cue so he don't have to ever have that habit, or to do the maintenance to remind himself that, hey, I don't want to remember this habit down the road. I need to be aware that it could hit me at any time. And I got to be ready for it because I could fall back into a lifestyle that once sent me to prison or that once made me obese or once put me on my deathbed in the hospital because I was so unhealthy. And that happens daily out here now in America because we're one of the most obese nations in the world. And we, as a country, have let these corporations build, fast food restaurants on every single corner in America. The Romans once said, if you can feed and entertain, you can control the masses. And that's what they do in America. Everybody has a cell phone in their hand, and they got fast food on every single corner. What do you think the Colosseum was for in Rome? It was to control them people. They weren't voting against anybody. They were the longest running democracy, 530 some years, until they were overtaken by, I believe, the Franks, or the Ottoman Empire. I can't remember. But think about that. We, as a country, need to learn not to go so much towards what the TV's wanting us to do and all those commercials that are brainwashing us, but we need to start forming our own habits that determine our behaviors, if that makes sense to you. I hope it does. I tried to be, layman as possible. Because I was getting deep in my head right there. I'm like, wait a minute, I better not talk about those words. Nobody has any idea what I'm talking about. But, all right, so I want to read another little excerpt of this book. Don't summon willpower, override your desires, focus on changing your environment. See, and in my last book review, the gentleman had talked in the beginning of the book about environment. Like, your moderated behavior, then environment. The core behaviors, moderated behaviors, environment. And it's like, I think environment's one of the biggest causes of health problems in America today. You love your family members when you're young, but you don't have any idea how that they could be stressing you out in ways that their behaviors and their bad habits are reflecting on you, and now you are acting a certain way because they've made you feel, or they've done something with their behaviors or their habits to get you there. And a lot of times it's the environment that you were growing up in, negative self-upbringing, negative self-talk because of parents or, aunt and uncles that talked a certain way, and we mimic our family members that were around us when we were coming up because those are the people we love and enjoy. If we focus on changing our environment, I think a lot of great things would be going on in your lives. You'd be happier. You would understand a lot more about yourself if it was the environment that you enjoyed as opposed to the environment that your parents enjoy or your grandparents enjoy or your aunt and uncles enjoy, whatever it may be. Because I think a lot about family because I feel like a lot of us do suffer from a lot of negative self-upbringing, and we don't understand our behavior types, or we don't understand that the habits that we've formed are making us say and do things that are actually hurting people that love us, or, and sometimes maybe you're doing things that you don't even know habit-wise that it's helping you. Maybe you're out there doing all these little cues and squashing all those cues, and you ain't having bad habits, and you don't even know because there are people out there that do little things every single day, and it was those little things that got them where they are now. And I know it's true because once I read this book, I realized how I dug myself out of the worst hole I could have ever dug myself. Most people say from ages 18 to 25, that's when you either build your life or you break your life. And let me tell you, folks, I broke mine. But by the time I was 29, I had gotten educated, went back to school and got a degree. And I totally changed. I didn't realize why, everybody was always like, oh, you need to get educated. Oh, I get it now. I had no idea that my family education and my school education was nowhere near what my world education was going to be. Because the world education is limitless. And that's how we change our habits and our behavior, is by becoming more intelligent and understanding of the human habits and behaviors around us and how they affect us and how they affect our environment. So, make cues of good habits obvious and cues of your bad ones invisible. I'm going to read that again. Make cues of good habits obvious and cues of bad ones invisible. And that's hard to do, trust me. Especially, you wake up and, you're having trouble sleeping. All of a sudden now you're in this sleep pattern where you can't get to sleep. In reality, your body will go to sleep. But you've all of a sudden gotten into a pattern of thinking about, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. Nobody hears your thoughts but you. Nobody's going to believe that garbage but you. When I lay down, I'm serious. When I lay down at night, boom, I'm out. Because I'm in control of my inside. And sometimes, obviously we all go through, workout, soreness, stuff like that will keep us up from being able to sleep, or our jobs keep us up sometimes from sleep, stress, things like that. But if you start building better habits, put that glass of water by your bedside, so when you go to bed at nighttime, you drink that water, letting your body know it's time for bed when you drink that water. Those are little tiny habits. And then when you get up in the morning, you drink another quarter cup of water to energize your organs, your stomach tissue, it'll start pumping your heart faster, because in reality water is energy. And those are little habits that will lead. It's not about the right now. Habits are about the future, because nobody's looking at the longevity of all the little things that you're doing that are bad. They're looking at the right now and not the longevity of the future, because every little tiny habit that you have will affect you detrimentally in 5 years. Why do you think all these famous people are like, oh, what I said to myself was, where am I going to be at 5 years? You know what? I wrote myself a note, put it in my wallet, and said, I'm going to be a millionaire in 10 years. Because they did that because that was the beginning of a tiny habit that honestly led them to achieving that probably in less time than 10 years or 5 years. Because every little seed you plant will someday reap one hell of a harvest. All right. So make cues of good habits obvious. You want to get out there and be like, okay, the cue was that putting that water by your bedside to wake you up in the morning, to wake up your organs. The cue of the bad one is not putting a cup there at all. That's a bad habit. Or a good habit would be rolling out of bed, making your bed first thing in the morning. The military teaches our troops to get up in the morning to make their beds first thing, because that teaches a young man responsibility. That gets you driven for the day. It starts your day humbly. No one's bothering you while you're making that bed. Your mind's waking up, and you're doing this every day repetitively. 20 years down the road, that woman he's laying next to, or that man she's laying next to, they're thankful for that time that they took making that bed in the military. Because now they had no idea that, you should make your bed every day, because it gets you started in the morning and gets you motivated. That's a good habit. So that's a habit you want to be obvious. A bad habit would be rolling out of bed, not making the bed. Jumping up, running into the bathroom, getting your makeup on, doing your hair, and, or, another bad habit they talk about now is as soon as you wake up, you grab your phone and look at it. Terrible idea. The light hits your eyes, and then your brain's automatically on autopilot all day long, because all you're thinking about is that phone. And nobody knows that there's little scientists in a 6x9 room every single day studying these gadgets and how they're affecting our kids, and how 3-year-olds are so drawn into these gadgets that we're literally creating robots. And that too will be addressed in the future too at some point, I'm sure. We're going to have to face the reality of what electronics are doing to the young children's minds of the world today. But here, I'm going to move on a little bit, guys. Let's see. Supernatural. Oh, here he talked about super normal stimuli is a heightened version of reality. And that's when, so I always want to refer to an addict of a person, because, oh man, I've seen some addicts out there, you guys, that were just wild. They would get so crazy and wild, just to get wild and crazy, because they could, they needed a fix, so they would get wild and crazy, like somebody was just going to go get their drug for them and give it to them, But that's a super normal stimuli, is a heightened version of reality. Because there's nothing really going on. They're just making something go on to, create. So when they're getting all wild like that, they're creating dopamine inside of their body, which is another way to get a fix. So when people get angry and they're always getting angry over nothing, they're mad over nothing, well, they're trying to create an external stimuli, so they get mad, and it creates their dopamine receptors to kick in. And also, James Clear talks about this book, a study that they had done on mice, that they actually put in, I think, some kind of beta blocker, and it starved them of dopamine, Man, I'm telling you guys, you need to read this book. It was wild. Yeah, very, very wild, you guys. The supernormal stimuli I thought was important that you guys should really try to research that. That's a good one, you know. He talked a lot about desire, and desire is the engine that drives behavior. Every action is taken because of the second law. Oh, wait a minute. Law of behavior, and that is change. And I believe the desire is the engine that drives behavior. I believe that. Yeah, desire. Desire is a big one, because I mean, if you don't have a desire to do something, then there ain't gonna be no behavior created around anything. You gotta spark up your interest, or something's got to get your dopamine receptors going for you to want to continue to go back to that atomic habit, you know. And that's why you guys need to read this book and buy it, because it's worth it, and you will not regret what the author has to say. I mean, if you want behaviors that are stable and predictable, you need an environment that is stable and predictable. And that's the truth about children. And that's why, you know, when kids are in unstable homes, they grow up, and you got these guys dating these, you know, nice country girls or nice city girls or whatever. But these young men have been raised to be wild animals, you know, because of their environments. They had two parents that were fighting like cats and dogs, so now that's all they know. And then they get with a little sweetheart, mama's sweetheart, you know, and she's like, wow, what's wrong with you? And she loves them, but how long is the relationship going to last like that? Because of somebody's bad habits and bad behaviors, but also negative upbringing and not knowing how to form quick, new, atomic, easy to understand behaviors. If you would just slow down and understand what's cueing these behaviors up. You know, what, and then bam, there's that craving. You know what, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go eat that cheeseburger. I'm going to respond. Oh, I'm going to go get that energy drink. I'm going to respond. Now I got my caffeine fix from Starbucks. I got my reward. I'm all good, guys. Woo! Okay. Also in this book, he talks about habit stacking. I love this idea, man. Habit stacking is like, wow. Which, I'm telling you, it's going to take time for me to really incorporate some of these. But, I mean, it ain't not that much time. It could be done in a week. You just got to take, from this book, write down what he tells you to, get on his webpage, do the stuff, if you ain't going to do the work, you ain't going to do anything. You ain't going to have no atomic habits, because all you're thinking about is the next gadget game you're going to download tonight and sit in front of the TV. You know, TV is why you're tired. TV is what makes us lazy. These gadgets are what's making us tired. It's been, you know, it's like everybody's like, oh, I don't want to go out and see anybody. I do. I'm tired of gadgets. I'm tired of being at home. I know a lot of people are. And so habit stacking can be paired with a current habit. So I think that if you have so it can be paired with a good habit or a bad habit to make a bad habit go away and to turn a bad habit into a good habit. And that's what habit stacking is all about. The habit stacking formula is after I, and then you insert current behavior. I will blank, new habit. I current behavior. So I drink Starbucks every morning. I will drink nothing but blended shakes in the morning from my blender as your new habit. And that's a habit stack, because you're stacking Starbucks with a new habit, so, you know, you have something to look forward to. And mine's like that. So if you got a bad habit and you're wanting to change it and you're trying to stack on a new habit, your mind's going to enjoy that, because you're actually engaging new neurotransmitters in your brain that's changing the neuroplasticity in your brain to form a new behavior. So that's habit stacking. And again, he's talking about environments affect habits. Our behavior is not defined by objects in the environment, but by our relationship to them. Good way to think how your environment affects your habits. When you step outside your normal environment, you leave your behavioral bias behind you. And that's what he talked about in the book too with the troops from Vietnam. They stepped out of Vietnam because, hey, think about this, you guys. You wake up every single day and you're a prisoner of war, but there's people there that are giving you a substance that's taking your mind off of how much pain and sorrow you feel inside from being taken from the people you love and not being able to enjoy the comforts of life. You know, you're going to get, your environment's going to force you into those habits because it's going to be hard to kick those habits because every day you wake up, you're a prisoner of war. They can starve you, beat you, hang you, you know, do whatever they want to you. And so that's why when they did the research and recorded when 5% of the troops came back from Vietnam, only 5% of them used in the first year, is what James Clear wrote in the book, and I find that that's wow, you know. So and he talks more about the stuff in Vietnam in his book, and you guys got to buy the book. It's only $12. It's really good, and I give it a 5-star review. Honestly, I really appreciate it. I hope you guys will follow me too. This is your boy Lo Jackson on the Only You podcast. I'm gonna start doing nothing but book reviews. I'm on behaviors right now, so I'm doing a lot of behavioral books. If anybody out there wants to hear me do a review and cares about what I have to say about it, because I take my time, I try to find great reviews or bad reviews because I don't want to be biased about the book. And I do think a lot of the reviews that were 1 star on Audible were about the reader reading the book too. I've seen a lot of those. I seen that some people didn't like that he pointed towards his website a lot, which my version didn't do anything like that. So I had no idea what they were really talking about. Hopefully you guys will follow me. Hopefully you enjoy my book reviews. I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about implementation formation that James Clear has talked about in the book Atomic Habits. It says, I will, and then you put the behavior at this time and in this location. So that's the start of the implementation, formulation of a new behavior. I will, and then you put the behavior, at, then you put the time, and then you put the location. I like some of this guy's ideas. They're simple, but hey, I know they work. I'm already. So I'll give you guys an example, okay? I've been thinking I needed to work out more often because in the last 4 or 5 years I've gotten more serious about my career and stuff, so I've let exercising take the back seat. Well, all of a sudden, in the last year or so, I started having like all these back problems. So I'm like, oh man. And before I read this book, I wasn't thinking that I had bad habits. You know, I work on my habits. I try to be a cognitive of them. But I never read a book about changing my habits, or I've only actually read books about forming new habits, really. And so with this book, you know, James Clear talks about the cue. And like when you eliminate the cue, you can almost eliminate the behavior. So I went out this weekend and I told myself, I wrote it down in my journal, actually, first in the morning. And I said, I'm going to go to Sam's Club and I'm going to buy me a new workout outfit. And maybe that will get me motivated to work out. Well, I went out and bought new socks, new workout outfit, you know, new shoes, everything. Sure enough, today at noon I worked out for the first time. I ran. I stretched. You know, I did some other cardio workouts, and then I ran. And man, I felt alive again. I was like, wow, is this all I needed to do was queue up, or build a new queue of if I go buy this new set of clothes just for this one activity, maybe then I will queue up that new habit and I'll work out more because it's about the long term and I care about my health, as I'm sure everybody else out there does too. You guys feel free to follow me. My name's Lo Jackson. I'm coming to you live from the Only You podcast here in Charleston, Illinois, where it's always cold in the winter and awesome in the spring and summer. Beautiful. So, please leave me some comments. Tell me what you think. Follow me. And hopefully I will get an audience and I can continue doing great book reviews, and maybe you guys will give me some ideas on my Spotify podcast. And thank you to Anchor, too, for the sponsorship they've given me to do this podcast. I'm very appreciative, and I think that this is a great idea because I actually have gotten this idea from Dr. Caroline Leaf and a guy named Scott Smith. I like Scott Smith because his podcasts are like 20 minutes a day, and they're just the morning boost. He gets you so motivated. I think he's an expert at doing podcasts. Honestly, he just gets me excited. And so does Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's really good too, highly intelligent. She has a great book out, great read also. And all these people offer counseling sessions, coaching sessions, and I'm sure, like James Clear, I'm sure he offers something too. Because if you subscribe to his webpage, I'm sure he offers some kind of coaching or training and stuff too about your behaviors. So feel free to reach out, you guys. Follow me on Spotify, Anchor, Castbox. I'm on several different sites. But this is your boy Lo Jackson. Until next time, peace.